very good morning to you on this 14th day of August 2018, and you are just in time for NTV Today. Today we dedicated to looking at the state of the nation. And where do we start? There's a lot that's been going on, and yes, we have two panelists who will help us discuss and analyze the situation that we find ourselves in as a country. There's a lot to look at, whether with the National Land Commission Chairman Mohamed Swazuri having just been released yesterday on a 6 million shillings bail, and pre-trial of that particular case will be on August 29th. There's a demolitions is ongoing, a lot of people having their views on what's going on right now. There's also the bribery allegations in Parliament to defeat the sugar report. We'll have an update from Kennedy Mureithi, who is on that beat today, and ex-Nairobi executives facing charges are in court today, and Setolal is following up on this story, but also following up on this conversation on the state of the nation, especially with graft. At the top of our minds is our very own Oko Kusa in Kisumu, speaking to some of those in the area on what they think is our situation. Oko?
Well, Mark, yes, I'm standing right in the middle of Oginga Odinga Street. Actually, where I am now is one of the hot spots as far as politics in Kisumu here is concerned. And people here...
Some people have said that...
Right, I mean, they're full of opinions regarding what is currently happening in Kenya. Of course, we know you've mentioned there cases of the demolitions in Nairobi, which they also feel should extend here in Kisumu, where quite a number of structures too have encroached on wetlands. They're also giving their views strongly on the sugar scam. Remember, this is one of the sugar belts. We have Nyando sugar belt within Kisumu County, and therefore matters sugar really affect.
I think it's a bad coincidence. We're talking about corruption. That sound is corrupted. But we'll be crossing back over to Oko Kusa in Kisumu as soon as we sort that out. But there are many people who are waiting to give their opinion on what they feel is the situation and what should be done to rectify our place as a nation, to fight the graft that is seeming to be in every sector. Let's talk a bit about education and the very latest concerns on that. And we'll have Sharon Baranga, who is our education correspondent, follows up on this and brings us the very latest.
The ecology of creation. But our ecology and environment concerns might go beyond the visible creation. We have now a situation of terribly heavy toxics that have invaded the minds and hearts of our students and our staff. And the first I want to highlight, besides the one it's included in this idea of honesty, is a new type of valueless mindset. No values, valueless mindset. There are no permanent values, depends. And that is a breeding ground of the fake happiness, fake success. That as soon as I see someone coming in there with blings, I say, oh, what a successful man. When they land with helicopters, we all go and oh my goodness, I would love to come to my grandmother with a helicopter. All the village will know I am someone. That's what the young people are dreaming, to come to your school in a helicopter as an alumni. That would be the dream. Surprisingly, that is what we have sold to them. So these toxics have totally emptied our young ones of the lasting values. And this toxic is in every meal, in fashion, in media, in leadership. The leaders we have are all speaking about what they drive. If you don't have a Lexus, you don't have a huge Prado and an open, whatever they are called, convertible, that is really, who are you? How can you dare even speak before men and women? You're not a leader. If you come with a jalopy, that is a Toyota, who are you? How can you be driving that? That's what they believe. Music, lottery. These are called the bogus role models. And we must flag them. That's what principals must do. You must flag the bogus role models.
To some of the views of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops at the Catholic University on the role of parenting in education, concurrently happening as this is going on in Mombasa is the Primary School Heads Teachers Conference, where the President is expected to give an address. We'll be crossing over there in a bit and listening in to the ongoings. There was a bit of chaos yesterday and even allegations of graft on some allowances there. I mean, this graft thing is everywhere. But first, let's take you back to Kisumu. Oko Kusa is now ready to give us some of the residents' views on the state of the nation.
Well, Mark, sorry about that hiccup earlier on there, but as I said earlier, I'm standing right in the middle of Odinga Street, where I'm surrounded by quite a number of residents here who want to react on the current situation regarding graft in the country. Remember, the sugar report that Parliament means a lot to the people down here. Yesterday, the Member of Parliament for Nyandu, that is Jared Okello, came out to distance himself from this bribery claim, saying, castigating the members of Parliament who are alleged to have been bribed, actually, to shoot down this report. So here I have quite a number of residents, and they're going to give us their reactions regarding what has happened so far in the fight against corruption. Just tell me your name, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Okusa. My name is Salim Onyanga Elias Tosha. I reside along Kisumu here, Kisumu County. On issues to do with the graft, we are in support with the President, together with the Honorable Raila Odinga, fighting against the graft. But on the issues of the sugar, we are ashamed of our MPs around. And most of the MPs who are coming from the sugar belt, we are seriously ashamed, and we are saying shame on them. If they can be bribed, like someone who is selling mandazi in the entire direct inside the assembly, what is 10,000 with from to an MP? We are ashamed, and we are saying, if they can continue, and we are ordering as members of public, they also need to be investigated. Director of Prosecutor, the DCIA should step inside the Parliament and investigate them too. Issues to do with the demolitions around in Nairobi, we also need to be extended in Kisumu as well, because the private developers who has developed their assets in the wetlands, and the playing grounds of our playing grounds in the estates has been grabbed. And our children need to play, need to have good atmosphere around. So we are ordering even the county government of Kisumu to step up strongly, and those things should be demolished 100%.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Let me hear from another person, please. Quickly, just give us your views. Country as far as the fight against corruption is concerned.
My name is Philip Oy.
Just look up.
Yes. If you see what is going on, the whole public, the Kenyan public are in support of the president and his and Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga. From the handshake of March 9th, things are happening. The public can see that things are happening.
Okay.
So while we are talking about corruption that happened in Parliament, we are seriously amazed. In fact, what I can say is that our parliamentarians are not serious, because especially those who are coming from the sugar belt, they should have endorsed that report, because when our companies are collapsing, we are not, our people are being rendered jobless. You see, so when there is a sugar influx, the market of the local sugar is nowhere to be seen. So that's why they could have endorsed it. But if they got bribed like people who are not of any caliber, then we are shocked.
Okay, fine. Let me hear from another person. The leader of troops in this region, and is being accused of failing to guide his troops as far as this report was concerned in Parliament. What can you say about it?
Okay, what I think about John Mbadi is like, you want John Mbadi to come out with the story very clearly. If in case John Mbadi was involved in the issue of the bribery, we are asking maybe as the youth leaders of Kisumu or youth leaders from Nyanza, John Mbadi should resign from his seat. What we are trying to say is like, members of parliament has been so much shameful. What they did in the assembly, the issue for the sugar, has been like, Nyanza people cannot grow. If you look at the entire region, the Nyanza and the western region, we have the major regions which are growing sugar. And like, if you look at our MPs around, the issue for the sugar is a very shameful thing. And we are asking the government, even the public prosecutor, to shame all the politicians, all politicians who are coming from Nyanza, all politicians who are coming from Western, to come up and clean their names. This is a very serious issue. And like members of parliament, if in case they're going to be involved in the issue of bribery, we want that report. We want members of assembly to do away with that report and come up with a new report. The committee which was involved in investigating this report should also be investigated. The member of the majority leader of the National Assembly must also be investigated. These things are very serious things, and the economic capacity for the region is going down. The sugar belt region, we are dying. Our sugar factories are dying. We cannot create more employment in our regions. And this is a very serious thing. Members of parliament should resign. All of them, we are asking the president to take action against this.
Are you sure that the president is sincere in his fight against graft in the country?
I heard when President spoke in Kisii, when he talked about the youth, when he was talking about the on the youth forum in Kisii, the president stressed this thing very clearly, that even as youth, even as the community, we should come out very clearly and condemn those people who are corrupt. And he said we should take the mandate as the people to arrest even those guys who are corrupt, even the police who are collecting bribes from the matatus, from the cars along the street. We should come up as people, arrest them and take them to the police station. Okay. The president is very sincere and we are supporting it. The county is really supporting it.
Okay. Let me take one more person and then we'll see how we can wind up. Let me ask you about the demolitions happening in Nairobi. Would you like to see a similar thing happening in Kisumu? We are told that it's extending to Mombasa. Does Kisumu experience such problems too?
Of course, yes. Because so many people have been just coming, erecting some structures in everywhere they got. They are not even sincere in what they are doing. Especially yesterday, I was very much shocked with Ferdinand Waititu coming openly and criticizing the president of doing what is right for the people of the republic. Let me also even ask the vice president who was seated when Ferdinand was talking. Is he with the president or is by his own? Why should he sit in a place where the directive is being given as a head of state, and he's also sitting down and criticizing, laughing when Waititu is talking? Is he with the president or is he alone fighting his fight? According in the sugar industry, yes. If I may talk, I am also a sugar farmer. I've been farming sugarcane for the last 7 years. But now I can't say I have anything in my pocket as a farmer. I know what it takes when the sugar is being brought in as in a bulk for the small sugarcane farmers. So if these people have decided to do this, I don't know if they want to kill everybody around, because we are hearing that sugar is contaminated. If it is contaminated, okay. Will those people bringing sugar, are they wanted to stay here alone and everybody dies? Okay. Let them come clean in that thing, and especially Mr. Mbadi. Okay. How can Mbadi, who is a leader of a very big party, ODM, being bought with 10,000 citizens and stand in front of the house and saying he will stand with this thing and say he's going to stand with this statement? Let him stand with this statement and tell us how clean, what investigation he has did to see that the finance minister is clean. Let him come with the investigation he do, okay, to make that person clean.
Thank you very much. Well, Mark, you've heard it. Very sharp reactions they are coming from residents of Kisumu regarding what is currently going on as far as the fight against graft is concerned. Remember, this is Kisumu County actually lies right in the center of Nyando Sugar Belt, and of course, matters sugar touch people down here close to their hearts. I've mentioned there before that Nyando Member of Parliament Jared Okello yesterday came out to criticize his colleagues who are alleged to have been bribed. We don't know whether he's clean too. That is yet we cannot tell at this moment. But those are some of the views regarding what is happening in Kenya right now, Mark, and they've heard it from the residents themselves. Over to you.
Machoko Kusa in Kisumu, let's go right to the heart of it, and that's to Parliament, where Kennedy Mureithi is standing by with what will be the focus of the day, and that is on the bribery allegations it's facing parliamentarians who are accused of having shot down the sugar report. Over to you, Kennedy Mureithi.
Thank you very much, Mark. And exactly as you have said, here in Parliament, it's a beehive of activity as members of Parliament are strategizing on how the afternoon session is going to be. And here, members of Parliament have joined me as soon as they saw that we were coming for this live interview. And I'm joined by Kanini Kega, who was the chairperson of the Joint Parliamentary Committee that was discussing the sugar issue. It was the report they put together was brought before the floor of the House, but it was defeated. What next for this report, or what next for Kanini Kega? Because at this particular time, he says that his name is on the line and his credibility, both to the people of Kieni and to the people of Kenya, is in line because they used public money in coming up with this report. It is the Parliament that sent them to the different parts of this country just to make sure that they were coming up with a report. Just to quote Kimani Ichung'wah, the Member of Parliament for Kikuyu, on the floor of the House on that day that this report was being discussed, he said that they sent them out to taste the sugar, but they ended up tasting the sugar. What did you go out to taste the sugar, and what next?
One, it was a very irresponsible statement from a colleague. Of course, I do not want to discuss about the colleague. Thursday was a very unfortunate day, and one of my lowest moments, because we had an opportunity to tell Kenyans whether the sugar is safe or not. Parliament had an opportunity to tell Kenyans who imported sugar and who did not import. Parliament had an opportunity to assure the Western Kenyan people who grow sugarcane that they have a future. But all of it was thrown out basically because of individuals who had personal interest. This document, as you see it, is a good document. It might not be the best document, but it captured all the issues that we were sent out to interrogate. It had the recommendations. One, saying that there is no mercury from what the test that we had seen. Two, it had listed all the 169 importers who brought sugar into the country. It had also indicated that ministers who maybe in one way or the other did not do their part, we had recommended them to be investigated. But with a stroke of a pen, and a team led by the majority leader and minority leader discarded a document. And of course, if they had an issue with ministers, they know for sure that you cannot discard an entire document. You move amendments. But for them, they thought it was wise to throw the entire document away, which was very, very unfortunate.
But they also had their own reasons, which they purveyed on the floor of the House, because as a member of Parliament, they are either supposed to support or not. And them being leadership, it was not only them who disagreed with the report that you came up with. Also, members themselves put forth their arguments and actually said that what you had done is not what they had expected you to do.
Let me tell you, my friend, and I'm inviting you to also read this document. This document is conclusive. It answers all the questions that were answered. All of it. Actually, we went beyond even the question that we asked, because if you are sent as a police officer to go and look for money in a particular house and you find a gun, are you going to say that you are not going to check or to pick that gun basically because you are sent to go and look for money? Any information that you stumble upon as you do an investigation, it also becomes part and parcel of your report. The report is conclusive. The report is genuine. But unfortunately, I think we were taken for a ride even as a committee. We were doing other person's work. Maybe we were set up, because that is what I think we were set up. Maybe we were set up, and then the person I hold responsible for this is the leader of majority, because he is the one who has been prosecuting this case even before we brought this report to the floor of the House. Remember that we had even asked the House to give us 30 days. The leader of majority refused and said that we can only give you 7 days and you give us progress report. What happened when we brought the progress report? We were told that this is a report that does not even qualify to be in an MCA's chamber. And it was not a report. So we were set from the word go. And I want to tell Kenyans that Parliament on that particular Thursday was at the lowest moment. And I think we should redeem ourselves as Parliament. As a committee, we did our best. We brought a report. It is not about the cost, how much we spent, but also the opportunity cost. We lost an opportunity to reassure Kenyans that the food that we have in the country is safe. Now, we lost an opportunity also, because it's also very, very important. We also lost an opportunity to reassure farmers in Western Kenya that the government is also thinking about them, and it will never happen again whereby we import sugar, more sugar than we need in this country.
Now, Mheshimiwa, moving forward, now that this report was already on the floor of the House and it was thrown out, what next for you? Because you led this team and probably your credibility is on the line. What next?
My credibility, I don't think, is on the line, because we delivered a baby who was alive, a baby who was breathing. I gave it to the members of Parliament who were on the floor of the House. But when I came back, the baby was dead. So who killed the baby? It is not me. It is the members of Parliament who killed the baby. And it is very, very, very unfortunate. Because once a report is rejected, that is the end of the story. But I know the other arms of government are looking upon us to even look at the document, because it doesn't have to be passed by Parliament. A fact is a fact. If there is any person who made a mistake, the other relevant agencies, the DCI, EACC, Kenya Revenue Authority, they are seized of this document, and I know for sure they are going to act. But moving forward, to redeem the image of Parliament, we have to say very, very clearly, if you have an issue with a document, please expurge the part that you feel that is not comfortable, but don't throw the baby with the bathwater. That is exactly what happened. And it all goes to the leader of majority and the leader of minority, even in terms of the conduct that they had on the floor of the House. And today, if it is approved, I am drafting a motion to discuss the conduct of the leader of majority and also the leader of minority, and specifically the leader of majority, because of the abuse of office, because there was some form of interference. The leader of majority trying to favor a particular company whom they wanted us to say that they were discriminated, who are supposed to pay 2.5 billion shillings to the Kenyan Revenue Authority.
Those so you're accusing the majority leader of having specific interests with this sugar matter?
Absolutely. And that is the reason I feel so much annoyed. We were misused as a committee. We were taken on a wild goose chase, because nobody was even listening to what we were saying. Because basically, the moment we didn't talk about Dalasa Limited, which is supposed to pay 2.5 billion shillings, and we did not mention in the report, then of course, the report did not make any sense any further. So, in future, if you, as a member, you want Parliament to prosecute your matter, say it explicitly. Don't take the committee round using taxpayers' money. Parliament was not interested to know whether sugar was safe or not, because it was clearly stated.
Mark, one of the other things that has actually brought so much heat within this matter about the sugar is the issue of bribery. And members of Parliament are said to have even received as low as 10,000 shillings to change the outcome of this report and shoot it down. I have some members of Parliament who are really feeling very much aggrieved with this matter, and they say that they come from these areas that grow sugar and they want to speak about it. Let us just say, how much money did you receive if it was being given?
One, I don't know whether it was being given. Two, I haven't received a single cent ever since I stepped in this Parliament, or even outside my life. Some of us, we've taken time to build our own CV, to build our own character. We are not that low. So one thing I was surprised, and I'm happy that some of you, some of the reporters have reported that you have the clips towards people being bribed. I want you to make it public so that the voters know exactly. I come from where farmers are right now suffering. They can't take children to school. They can't even put a meal on the table. Now, when we come here and you realize that the leadership of the House is frustrating such a report, honestly, it frustrates some of us. You see now the newspaper, this newspaper, it's now floating all over, the Citizen newspaper, the Qatar Press. Our names, all of us who are standing here, some of these honorable members, we were in Mombasa doing a report because we are just about to go to the recess. We wanted to deliver the report for our committee, and we are being listed on the same. And the voters are asking, they want answers. I agree with the chair of Agriculture Committee that we need to discuss the characters of some leadership in the House. And this one, I'm going to support him. This afternoon, we shall be in the House. If he's bringing such a motion, if he delays, even some of us will bring it, because it's a very serious offense. And the dignity of the House must be restored.
Well, Mark, also on the front page of the Star newspaper, it is written that one member of parliament, that is Endebe's member of parliament, Pukose, actually says that yes, there was money, but they were fundraising for the wedding of Emurodi Kir, member of parliament, that is Yohana Ngeno. I want to hear views. Were you involved in this? Did someone ever come to you to give money towards this wedding, if it is true?
One thing is very clear, which should be known by every Kenyan. I'm extremely perturbed by the media reports that my names and the names of members of parliament from Turkana are in the list. None of the members of parliament from Turkana is either in the agriculture committee or trade, which has been tasked by parliament to go through this report. Personally, I'm a member of PAC, and that's the only committee I belong. And PAC, as a committee, has not had a session with the contractors who are tasked with the issue of importing sugar.
So in long and short, you're saying there is nothing like bribery?
There is nothing like bribery, and I'm a person of high standing. And my economic value in the community where I belong is extremely high. And therefore, giving me a low premium of 10,000 is extremely very shameful. And I'm going to file a case against that media house or that newspaper which tainted the name, my name and those of names of Turkana. And then finally, on Thursday, when this report was before the House, all members of parliament from Turkana were in Turkana County because we had a visit by the Deputy President. So at what point did we interact with the sugar issue or the contractors? I'm not even aware of any of the contractor because I'm not a member of none of those committees.
Did you see money exchanging hands?
Thank you very much. I'm Honorable Geoffrey Omuse, Member of Parliament, Teso South. Just as my colleagues have said, I think the best thing for the media houses is to own what they write. And we want to say that the DCI should take charge and ensure that they charge the citizen people. Because personally, and other members, as have been mentioned here, we were doing our report in Mombasa. We've been there for 1 week in the authority of the speaker. But when we found that our names are there, that we were given 10,000 shillings, this is spoiling the names of leadership. We from Western Kenya and Nyanza as a region, we support our farmers. And we are here so that we defend what is rightfully ours. Personally, I'm a farmer myself, and I think the media should be held responsible sometimes when they report things that are not true. Thank you very much.
Now, Mark Masai, as you've rightly heard, is that members of parliament are saying that this is a hot potato and it is not a matter of whether they are involved in this, but they explicitly say that no money exchanged hands. We've been looking for Pukose, and probably we'll be finding him in the next few minutes so that he can talk to us and ask how come he was taking money for a wedding with which the member of parliament who has been mentioned explicitly says that yes, I did not give anybody authority to collect money on my behalf. So these are some of the issues that we will be discussing, and we do expect that probably later in the parliament, we do also expect that the Speaker of the National Assembly will be giving a statement on this matter and communication from him with regards to this. With also Kanini Kega saying that later they will be drafting a motion to discuss the leader of majority and the leader of minority with regards to their stand on the sugar report, because they say that their stand on the sugar report, they stand by it and they believe that they gave this country the best report. It is a matter that we'll be keeping tabs on, and probably we'll be talking to these members of parliament later just to find out how next. Thank you, and back to you, Mark.
We were out there working.
Well, that member of parliament is very keen to clear his name that he wasn't a beneficiary of any of the funds that are claimed to have been given to members of parliament last week. And you've just heard one of the other twists in this tale, that it was actually being used to raise money. If there was any money seen in parliament, it was being used to raise funds for a wedding for colleague of theirs. And we'll see whether this has any water or holds any water in terms of the truth. But that right there from Kanini Kega talking about the leader of majority and minority is definitely going to be an angle that will get reactions today and something that we will pursue. Over now to Homa Bay, where Bernardo Joang is standing by with some residents. A bit of a different concern, but they will also weigh in on the state of the nation. But topmost in their concern or their list of priorities is the concerns of the return of hyacinth in Lake Victoria. Over to you, Bernard.
Well, thank you very much, Mark Masai. We are here at the Homa Bay Fire Market. Of course, a fresh concern have emerged here following the return of water hyacinth in Lake Victoria, especially along the beaches here in Homa Bay County. Fishermen are now saying that the return of this weed has really hampered their activities here, saying that they are now facing serious financial implications. And we are along these lectures here, we are seeing boats have been parked, fishing boats have been parked, with the fishermen only waiting for that day when these weed will move away from their fishing areas, so as to continue with what they know best. And of course, we'll also be talking to locals here over the issue of corruption. Remember, it is our topic of the day. And to start with, I'll start with this fishmonger here. You'll start. Utaanza kwa majina waitwa nani na hii water hyacinth imewathiri namna gani?
Mimi naitwa Joyce Kigosi. Mimi ni mfanyabiashara wa hapa ziwani. Tuna matatizo ambayo imetukumba kwa hivi sasa, magugu haya ya maji haya ndio imefika, tuwezi kupata hata samaki. Tunapata shida mno. Samaki haipatikani, hata kuna boti ilikuwa inatoka kule ng'ambo, water bus. Siku hizi haiwezi hata kutoka kule Asembo kuja huko Homa Bay. Kwa sababu gani? Kwa sababu ya haya magugu maji.
Sio mara ya kwanza nyinyi kushuhudia gugu maji katika ziwa hili. Unaona nini kifanywa inaweza malizika?
Tulikuwa tunaomba msaada kutoka kwenye kaunti yetu, aongee na president yetu Uhuru na baba yetu Mheshimiwa Raila, wangetusaidia kutoa haya, wangeleta hata sijui wanaweza kuwa na ujuzi yoyote, walete tu kama inaweza kuondoa haya magugu maji.
Asante sana.
Shida ambayo tulionayo, hata samaki haipatikani, ni shida ndio hayo na maji.
Asante sana.
Masafi pia haipatikani.
Asante sana. Mark, I'll also talk to one person here. Welcome. Kutengeneza kofia. Hii mambo na water hyacinth imewaathiri namna gani kama wafanyabiashara hapa?
Kweli kwa majina, kwanza naitwa John Jomo Kidao. Hili gugu la maji actually limetuletea hasara sana. Ukiangalia hapa vizuri naona hii ni soko la wavuvi, waranguzi na wavuvi. Na ukiangalia huku chini limefunga kabisa, ambapo hata boti yoyote ambayo inaweza kuingia hapa kuna. Transportation means ambayo inaweza kutoa samaki kule kama vile soko wanatoka kule na vitu ya kuleta hapa kwenye sokoni imesimamishwa. Sisi kama wenzetu wako hapo wapiga picha. Ukiona ile boti pale, ile ni boti ya kupeleka wageni, tourist, foreign na local tourists wanakuja hapa, tunawapeleka kule ng'ambo kuona islands zetu, kuona vitu mingi. Lakini sasa haiwezi kwenda kwa sababu zimezuiliwa.
Solution nini?
Solution tunaomba ya kwamba kama serikali, vile mwenzangu ameshasema, naomba serikali, president pamoja na mwenzake Mr. Raila waone ya kwamba wametutolea hili gugu maji hapa, na wanaweza kuitoa kwa njia yoyote ile wanayopenda. Na sisi zaidi tunaomba ya kwamba ili wananchi wa hapa nao pia wafaidike kwenye kuondoa hili gugu la maji. Pesa itolewe na iwekwe mipango ambayo inaweza kufanyisha watu wakitoa hili gugu kule kwenye maji waiweke kwenye lori na iende likatupwe mahali ambapo litakanyagwa na likauke, limwagiwe mafuta, lichomwe kabisa, kwa sababu likiwekwa huko bila kumwagiwa mafuta na kuchomwa, zile mbegu zake wakati mvua itakuwa inanyesha tena inateremsha na irudisha kwenye gugu.
Asante sana. Mark, I'll speak to the last person here. You've had people talking, the colleagues here talking, saying that something should be done. What do you think should be done at least to do away with water hyacinth in Lake Victoria once and for all?
What should be done, Bernard, is one, removing water hyacinth. The only way to remove it is to do what we call manual removal, which would be good. It also would be provide employment, temporary employment to the people around here. If funds could be availed, then it could be plucked one after the other and dumped elsewhere. Would be a permanent solution to this thing. Otherwise, it's a serious menace. It's a big problem to the people around here who really believe in the lake as a resource. But currently, you've been told, you've heard, there's no transport across. The other side is Karachuonyo, which has the largest number of beaches. The fish cannot really cross over to this end. There are also people who reside on the other side of the lake to come to the main town, which is Homa Bay, where we are at the moment, cannot cross because this thing has really blocked in between.
Thank you very much. Well, Mark, you've heard from the fishmongers, local fishermen. They are saying that a long-lasting solution should come from both the national and the county government. They should work hand in hand so as to ensure that the issue of water hyacinth is dealt with once and for all. And remember, almost 10 beaches have been affected here. They are fishing canoes along the lake shores. Back to you, Mark.
Bernardo John, thank you very much for that report, an update from Homa Bay. And yes, it is quite the concern, even as the rest of the nation is looking at other concerns. That is one of their major earners, that is fish, the income from the fish farming and what have you. So definitely something for the county government to look into to change the fortunes of the people there. Now back to the focus on the sugar report and the bribery allegations in Parliament. Not too long ago, Kennedy Moredi was speaking to Kanini Kega, who headed the committee that submitted that report that was shot down last week. Well, in response to some of the allegations, Wajir Women Representative Fatuma Gedi has denied claims that she bribed her colleagues with 10,000 shillings to influence a no vote that threw the contraband sugar report out. She, however, admits she was involved in serious lobbying for the report not to pass in Parliament. Gedi, who was mentioned by Kimilili MP Didmas Baraza was as one of the key people, I should say, dishing out money to MPs, now says she will seek recourse before the Powers and Privileges Committee. She also wants an apology from Didmas Baraza.
For me as an elected leader, I have a responsibility to oppose, as I said, and also to support. But in this report, yes, I did mobilize the members, and that is my responsibility. And I have no apologies to make to do that, because we saw the two co-chairs contradict themselves in this report. We saw the members themselves contradicting themselves in the same report, that it took times, weeks. We saw that. We saw the chair and a member in the national television discussing a report before tabling the House. What we saw in that House was the same committee who was speaking in two different languages. So as a member, and also a new member of this House, who will you believe? I read the report, and what I did was good for this country and was good for the House. I actually restored the dignity of the House, but I've never, ever bribed a single member.
These reports will definitely continue following up to get to the bottom of this, even as the media fraternity is getting the heat for the allegations that are being put out there. But it's definitely getting some response. Now, Kotu boss Francis Atwoli has encouraged the Director of Public Prosecution, Nurdin Haji, to turn his attention to the NSSF and NHIF officers, saying that there is evidence that Kenyans' money is being looted in those institutions. Atwoli has also supported the ongoing demolitions of structures built on riparian land, adding that no building erected on a public land should be left standing. Atwoli was speaking during the Trade Union Federation of East Africa conference held at Stanley Hotel, Nairobi County on Monday.
Yes, if you pump in to His Excellency the President, tell him that where he is where we wanted him to be. The position he has taken is the position we wanted him to take. Yesterday when he was saying he has lost friends, I shed tears. I said let him lose those crooked friends and he will land into very good friends.
For unions to remain relevant and further strengthen themselves, they should consider strategies like mergers and amalgamation as a matter of priority and basic survival. In addition, they should address themselves to such important matters on a day-to-day basis as we move ahead. That includes capacity building and training so that the various members are adequately prepared, better equipped to understand their roles and effectively play their positions as required.
So let's get to the discussion with two of my guests here in studio who've been waiting patiently, but following what's been happening from the parliamentary grounds, and some chuckles as you were listening to the responses there. Nerima Wako, she is the executive director and co-founder at Siasa Place and political analyst. You've had her here before on the state of the nation. That's what she's here to talk about. And Arnold Maliba, he is the policy analyst, a policy analyst to put it simply, but I have to get this title right. He is a manager in charge of strategic partnerships and policy dialogues at Emerging Leaders Foundation, ELF. That's for the benefit of your boss to know that you still represent him. Thank you for your time. And
it's actually a her.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's for the benefit of your boss to make sure that you are still secure. Now, where do we start? I mean, we have the sugar report and the bribery allegations from Parliament. We have the National Lands Commission chairman who's been let go just yesterday on bail, and of course there will be pre-trial on August 29th. There is the demolitions of structures and the reactions from some of the leaders. And then now there's the ex-Nairobi executives who are also facing charges of graft. So, I mean, this is a bad conversation to have on your birthday, first of all. Happy birthday, Nerima.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And sorry to spoil the mood, but what's the state? Let's start with that. What's the state of the nation as you see it right now?
Wow. Difficult question, because as of right now, it seems that our government is wasting a lot of money. We already saw in terms of taxes, a lot of people are concerned about the matatus, the fare going up.
Yes.
Then couple that on top of hearing that members of parliament are receiving bribes because to serve their own interests. So we could clearly see how they were trying really hard to defend themselves and say this didn't happen, this is false allegations, and actually blaming the media on that. I would say let's wait for the evidence. As much as they're saying that there are videos which could show these actions, let's wait on that, because our country has a reputation for getting rid of the whistleblower. I'm going to frankly say that I'm proud and happy that an MP actually stood up and openly said that this is what's happening within the House. Whether it's true or false, that's another story. But to have the guts to say that, it takes another level of courage in our country.
Given the context and background of what happens to
whistleblowers. Precisely. And then for you to go on and say that it was actually fundraising for our wedding, that's even worse. It's like, so you're spending your working hours to do things which are social. You could have done this at a private event after. So that means you're still using taxpayers' time and money to discuss things which have nothing to do with them. So it doesn't make you look any better. So it almost sounds and looks quite ridiculous. I think at this moment, they just need to go by the evidence that's available. Because the louder that they speak about how they didn't do it, they are not involved, the more ridiculous they appear. They sound like empty vessels.
Or even, it seems, admission of guilt, some would say, with all these reactions that are coming in. What's your view right now, from what you've just seen playing out in Parliament?
I think, having watched all that, I think as a nation we are at a very good point.
Okay.
For one, that the cost of corruption has actually gone low. MPs are actually receiving as little as 10,000. We should actually be happy that at least we are making progress. Secondly, that all these are coming up just a year after elections. It should serve as an opener to us to just realize that an election is normally not an event. It's a process.
Yes.
So once you go into that booth and you cast your vote, remember you actually are going to live for the next about 1,500 days with that leadership. So we are just marking the first anniversary and people are livid about what is happening. But I would say that the people of Kavirondo, specifically north and south, which is Nyanza and western as it is today, are people who are glorious, are people who are heroic, but they don't deserve the kind of leaders they have. A number of them, a few of them, like Nerima has said, it takes a lot of guts for a member of parliament, young as Didmas Barasa is, to actually come out and talk about corruption being in the house, because there's also bullying in parliament, serious one where you actually will not be given time to breathe, but the rest of them are actually silent. Yet sugarcane farming in western and Nyanza has been a backbone for years.
Yes.
There are families that went to school, there are economies that depend on that, yet they have a crop of leaders who just go around this and they play around. The same thing with water hyacinth.
Right, but let's rewind a bit to when this all started, because it has had a lot of twists and we can get lost in following the blame game right now. But it started with the CS giving revelations of what he believed was presence of contaminated sugar and saying that he would get to the bottom of this. Well, now the parliamentary committee says there's no contamination, or at least no mercury, from what we've heard with Kanini Kega's admission there. And so there shouldn't be any worry in terms of, in that aspect. Should that give us a relief and to stop pursuing this at the moment? What's your take on how it's really been twisted over time since the CS's admission?
I would say that from the onset it's been a very complicated issue, because as you speak about how the CS had mentioned that within a span of a few hours there was a contradictory statement from another high-level official. So it already appeared that there was confusion based upon not necessarily fact. Okay. And that for me is a concern in our country, where every time a scandal comes up or every time an issue comes up, we're more concerned of who's behind it, because now the conversation revolved around, well, if there's no mercury, it's because they're targeting the owners of the sugar businesses, because now it's become political, because now they're trying to start businesses with other entities. So it quickly escalated to the belief or the fact that there are cartels in our country that control certain businesses and things like that. So people are not even talking about the safety of the people. And that should have been priority. Whether or not there is mercury or not, we should have seen the results from different observations from different entities who did that research. And that's what we should have based our knowledge upon, not necessarily hearsay and she-say. And I think that's the issue with our country. The fact that I don't even know what the truth is, because we are so used to hearing people. The same with even, we can talk about Mao. You know, there are people who are talking about it being a conversation between conservation and eviction. And then you can clearly see that it has historical injustices linked to it as well. It's everything that we talk about, from even the fuel. When we talk about even our high electricity bills, we can link it to politicians. And that is the concern for our country, and that is the rot of corruption in our country, as soon as business and politics sleep in one bed.
Well, in trying to pursue this story then, many attempted to say that this is definitely, as she's mentioned, a fight between the business people within the sugar cartels. Because you've said, I mean, sugar has been an economy that has supported many families and regions, in fact. And this is then, you know, not something to wish away, that in fact it's cartels that are at war, and perhaps that are informing the political leaders' opinions on who is to blame with this current sugar scandal.
I think, first of all, we need to fight corruption backed by evidence, like Nerima said earlier on. It needs to be an evidence-based fight for obvious reasons. That you never know which hand is left and which hand is actually right. You see, if we are beginning from a place where even the government has moved the government chemist from the Ministry of Health to Interior. Probably that in itself says a lot, that they do not trust the independence of the government chemist while he or she is domiciled in the Ministry of Health. I think whereas we are constrained of resources, it would be, in my opinion, important to have some duplicity levels in government. You see that in other countries, that you'll have a number of layers of institutions doing things that are related. So rather than move the government chemist from the Ministry of Health to Interior, which more feels like we are militarizing the state, we should actually have given that capacity, or rather develop similar capacity with the DCI forensic lab that is actually coming up. Yeah. So that it, we can actually check balances, checks and balances being there. The whole fight around corruption is actually not very honest. It's not very evidence-based. You don't know who says the truth. Sometimes you see the truth. And like my pastor used to say, anything that looks like truth is a lie. Lies are supposed to be absolute, or rather truth is supposed to be absolute. So you will see the same thing even in the Ruaraka land saga, where everybody who says that the land is public does not have evidence. And we actually will forget that even government can actually grab land, especially when it is for the good of a few people. So,
or in the name of development, which is thrown out.
Well, public developer is actually euphemism for land grabbers, just the same way we call big shots when we are just calling thieves. They should just be thieves, but we use some very good words getting around that. And the president also seems like, whereas he's doing good work, he's even surprised by the progress he's made. He's even forgetting the law. Like the other day, he told young people, you can arrest people who are corrupt. Yet, there's a rule of law, we've got a constitution to follow. So if I feel like Nerima is corrupt, I can actually just go after her. Right. Now, what is that?
Okay. Yeah. So what you're saying is it's not so much just talking about the presence of or belief of corrupt elements within a particular sector, which has been, week after week, it's like we have a new scandal. Yeah. You're not too impressed by that because perhaps you feel corruption has been there, but give us something that we can really go to court with and bring someone, to book or take them to jail. Is that what would come out as a successful fight against graft, instead of the naming, shaming, aligning them in court, and it doesn't quite end at people behind bars? Yeah,
it would be convictions, especially of high-profile corruption cases, but also it would have to include systemic changes, because even when we can even give classic examples of NYS, yes, and how so much money has been plundered and stolen, and yet when we keep changing those who lead NYS but not necessarily changing how systems are done, because you would clearly see that it would be in procurement and tendering and proxy companies and people who are related to people within the department who are actually doing business, and then there's not much follow through. Even though there's a vendor who's been identified, there's no sign of service delivery and things like that, the checks. Okay. So if we change individuals within the system without changing the systemic function of it, then we're wasting time. And that's the same with EACC as well. And that's the same with even police and structures. And that's what builds our countries, our institutions. So as long as we convict people who are corrupt and do not change our institutions to be stronger, then convictions won't mean anything. They have to come hand in hand.
If they do indeed come hand in hand, but what is the end that will mean this is success for us? For instance, let's use a sugar issue. Now it seems with the admission of Kanini Kega, who headed that committee, there was no mercury. So there's no one to hold culpable for having imported contaminated sugar. So that's, case closed. Is that really where it ends? If a parliamentary report that's now seemingly shrouded with a lot of, interest within itself, given the powers that be with the sugar cartels, is that where this story dies?
Well, Mark, before we even look at that, it's important to tell Kenyans that they should not be carried away by the crackdown that is happening at the moment. There's not so much to it. Even under President Moi, there was a crackdown, a very serious one, and people clapped. Under Kibaki, we had a crackdown, a similar one, but corruption still persisted. Today, Uhuru Kenyatta is actually doing the same, and we think probably he's different.
Given its legacy term.
And talking about what Kanini Kega has said, you know, I almost burst into laughter when he said that Parliament needs to redeem its image. And you want to ask, does Parliament really have an image to protect in the first place, leave alone redeem? Seeing how they do their things and everything they get around. And a parliamentary report might not be one of the best things to trust in.
Okay.
For simple reasons. You know, I'm looking at the Ruaraka land issue that actually the Senate did the other day. There is a report done by the National Assembly, way the 11th Parliament, I think when Kapondi was the chair. And they went through the Ruaraka land saga, when the GSU was buying the other side, and that thing was settled. Today, if you look at the Kapondi report, and you look at what the Senate produced, they don't speak to each other. So you see the other day, the Speaker of the Senate picking up a fight with the Speaker of the National Assembly, picking up a fight with the Senate Speaker, saying that the Senate is overstepping. The one reason why the Ruaraka land report or other issue has not gone into a committee in the National Assembly is that it has already been dispensed over.
Yes.
So committee reports, and Kanini Kega is not the government chemist. We have not had a separate results coming out of it. So anything that comes from Parliament must be treated as a lie, first of all, until it's proved otherwise. Because they have proved to really speak, and you know, they really have got a lot of alibi. I was in Mombasa, I was in Nakuru, we were raising money for a wedding. How will you really contribute 10,000 to a fellow member of Parliament who's wedding? 10,000? Literally. But then, like I said, I am actually happy that the cost of corruption has come down. Probably the president is doing something. A long time ago, MPs will take millions. They are now accepting 10,000. That's just $100. And it's so sad that young people like Bobi Wine in Uganda, member of parliament,
yes,
are actually putting their life in line to redeem a country. Yet their age mates in the Kenyan parliament are taking $100, and the people the age of Bobi Wine's father are taking $100 of a bribe to sell a country. And corruption, looking at sugar, actually is a threat to national security. Already, out of this scandal, the EAC is in turmoil because Tanzania has actually blocked Ugandan sugar, saying that that is Kenyan sugar that we are trying to clean in here. Yes. So just see how a small thing, not really small, how corruption around here affects the region.
Yes.
That Magufuli and Museveni today are having a fight because of the sugar scandal here. It's a serious issue that should not be treated lightly.
Okay, he's brought up something before we take a quick break about not being impressed about people being lined up or arrests and what have you. Do you see orchestration in all this? Being indeed that we appreciate it's the legacy term of the president, and he says he's losing friends, and we'll hear that. And he really wants to show that he's tough on graft. Would there be an issue of or concern of orchestration with all these scandals coming up week after week?
Absolutely. There's nothing haphazard that happens in our country, and I repeatedly say that about our own security. As much as we are actually protected really well, our national intelligence does observe its people, and that's why we have all these cameras happening around. So as much as we like to say our government does not have the knowledge, in things like this, they have all the knowledge. There is, I would say, an historical, when it comes to our country, I do agree with Arnold very much, and including the lifestyle audit. Mwai Kibaki also tried to have a lifestyle audit, and so you can see similarities in the actions that they are taking. And Kenyans as a people, we have very short-term memory, where when things are repeated, we tend to act like they are brand new.
Yes.
And so it's very easy to rebrand. And that's why we even have the same politicians coming over and over again with the same lies, but we fall for them every time like they are brand new. So it's interesting to see, and I believe that once we see how the courts are going to rule over these cases, then I'll be able to speak. But as of now, it looks like the same script, the same story.
There's no part of you that has some form of belief in this campaign. Just really shortly, you and,
by the way,
Arnold.
If the president says that he's losing friends, but then we know your character by your friends. So if those are the kind of friends the president has, then what do we say of the president?
That is quite the comment there. You just lost friends in that comment itself. Nerima, any part of you believing in this campaign?
No, not yet. No.
All right. Well, I'll take a break at this point. You can weigh in on this discussion as you follow this. A lot is coming in terms of the state of the nation. And yes, a graph being the highlight on various sectors. We'll get into the demolitions right now. And some leaders are supporting it. Others are saying that, you know, the rivers should actually make their way around our developments. We'll listen to that and get reactions from Nerima and Arnold in a moment. Stay with NTV Today. on the state of the nation, and the highlight has been week after week on graft cases coming up from different sectors, and we've just been talking about the sugar scandal and the reports of contaminated sugar having made its way into the market, and now where the story finds itself that there are bribery allegations against parliamentarians to shoot down that very report that has been worked on over weeks. But then there's something else going on as well, and this is in the last 2 weeks, and that is the demolitions of buildings that have been built on riparian land or even on public property or road reserves, whether it be in Kilelesho, whether it be in Kibra. These are the demolitions that we've seen going on, and they're still going on. As they say, there's about 4,000 buildings that are earmarked for the demolitions. Well, the president had something to say about this, and he of course opened up saying that he's losing friends given the latest wave, especially on the bringing down of mega structures in the city. Let's listen in.
Over the last few weeks, I've lost very many friends, Bishop, because I've been receiving so many calls that, you know, how can you just sit there and watch all this destruction going on? You must stop it. And I said, well, it's difficult to stop. It's difficult to stop not because we love to destroy, but because we must fight impunity. The time has come for us to fight impunity. A time has come for every Kenyan to realize, no matter how powerful you think you are, no matter how much you think you know people in high position, no matter how much money you have, that will not save you. That will not save you.
And many Kenyans did say or throw their weight behind that statement by the president, saying they fully support him in his fight against impunity. And Nerima and Arnold, he is ready to lose friends at the benefit of fighting corruption. This, you say, doesn't really convince you, but he seems to have some action given what is happening right now. Buildings that over the years have been built, even after reports of them being on riparian land, but they still went up, and now they're coming down. Something is being done.
Okay, Mark, something is being done, the fact that the buildings are being destroyed. But are we talking about the fact that NEMA is now going out there and making sure the buildings coming up are certified to go up where they're going up? Because we've seen too many people dying because buildings have not been structured well. So as much as we're seeing progress somewhere, like I said earlier, that they need to be systemic changes in these organs. So everyone is talking about how exciting it is to see these green tractors and all that, and jokes going around, but are we looking at, okay, going forward, now people who are interested in building and investing in the CBD, are there now proper regulations and policies being followed? Because they did have certificates. Someone approved that. Someone did. And so are we going to go and now talk about the people who did? Are we going to now charge the people who did? Those are the conversations we're not having. And that, for me, doesn't really necessarily show a major shift.
But
it's
even
just
the president
cosmetic.
last week said he's going to fight those, not just the owners of the buildings, but those who gave approvals that these buildings be put up in the specific spaces that they stand on right now. He means business, from what you hear.
Well, until we see convictions, like I said, this is razzmatazz. We have seen this drama before, not once. We even saw a man take his own money and put up Integrity Center. He put up a whole case. You see, we have seen worse. We have seen this. This is not the first time buildings are going down. When Raila was the minister in charge of roads, buildings went down, and we have got the city as it is. So it's not entirely new. But even as we do that, the systemic issues are not being addressed. Those are fruits he's actually taking care of. He's bringing down buildings, but is that really the embodiment of corruption? He's not doing anything about sugar, which is almost 1 trillion shillings worth of an economy in this country.
What would you want the president to do?
So we're talking about,
given that he's left it to the natural course as you would expect it in Parliament, with the related parliamentary committee to take care of business, carry out investigations, and withdraw from any form of interference. What would you want the president to do in that case?
Number one, I would like to see him really engage EACC to do this work, because EACC is mandated to do that. But somehow you realize there has been a deviation. He's been using DCI more, and we hear a lot of NIS being part and parcel of it. So whereas an outfit like NIS would want to work out, they might not be able to present evidence in court, because the way they get the evidence is not the way you can't take it to court. So they will want to work it differently. But why is EACC not actively into it? So does EACC have enough money? The judiciary, which should be doing the convictions, has actually been disabled.
Yes.
So, and we still say we are fighting corruption when judiciary, but where justice is served.
Even EACC has had its allocation, brought down. But
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Where justice is served, because we're looking at justice.
Yes.
It is the preserve of the judiciary. Judiciary doesn't have money, and the president is so busy keeping us focused elsewhere. Yet when we deliver these people in court, it might not really work out. So I would like to see the instruments and the organs set out in law to fight this being enabled, so that it is not
DCI
a personal fight.
DCI was.
He wants to make it his personal fight when the Constitution has a lot of institutions to do that. Why is EACC not doing it? Why?
Perhaps over time it's shown, and Nerima, you can weigh in on this, perhaps over time it's shown that EACC hasn't been as effective. So that's why they're pursuing this new course with DCI. It's one of the institutions that is acknowledged in terms of pursuing such cases. So one would say it's just a change of tact.
I think you're making an assumption, actually. And interestingly, there are countries which have worked with departments like EACC within state functioning, like boards. For instance, Switzerland, where they don't have an EACC, where within each structure, like we talk about NEMA, DCI, whatever, there is an EACC office within it. Corruption should be fought by everybody. It shouldn't be one particular organ where their main function is fighting corruption, because corruption is faced by everybody. So as soon as we create an organ that is separate but dealing with everybody else, it's difficult, especially when we have a history of them not being independent, when we know very well, when we talk about the chair within the EACC, it's very political as to who gets selected and when and why and the funding. So it's difficult to have an institution such as that and expect them to carry out and deliver. Just like what Arnold is saying, within our judiciary and within the ECC, when they are not well funded, when they are not given the independence as it should be, as constitutionally stated, then it's going to be difficult for them to come out as this machine that's supposed to protect us from this corruption that we seem to want to fight.
It comes off somewhat as a conflict of communication. On one side, speaking harshly against impunity and corruption, but then on the other side, not quite equipping the institutions that are tasked with dealing with it. We'll hold it on this point at the moment and cross over to Mombasa on something else that's going on. There was some chaos yesterday at the primary school head teachers conference there, and none other than the Kenya National Union of Teachers head has been blamed for being behind that, and he's giving his address right now, and I believe the president will also be gracing this particular function. Let's listen in.
Leadership. But at the moment, we have big issues with the Teachers Service Commission. Big issues. It is tending to be a rogue organization that must be tamed so that teachers can teach peacefully. The independence of TSC is not independence of individuals. It is constitutional independence of the teachers of this nation. From 2015, we have seen over 82 circulars that are very difficult to implement and that are disturbing to the teachers of this nation. I'm saying so without mincing my words. I'm not naming names. We don't name names. We speak about issues. Number one is abolition of promotion of teachers. The only incentive that exists, and this was done in the month of May via circular number 7 of 2018, that abolishes all schemes of services. and particularly targeting those teachers with new and higher qualification. And you know too well, academic qualification is an intellectual right that must be compensated by the employer. And the Code of Regulation of Teachers in Section 73 and Section 74 recognizes this right. A policy, you are a lawyer, a policy cannot replace a piece of legislation or regulation. And in this, my members, remember last year when we signed the CB and when it was implemented, quietly annual increments were removed. True or not true? It was reinstated after we stated it. Now, abolition of the schemes of services is going to withdraw 5 billion benefit teachers every year, annually. That's a big loss. And when I speak about taking action, some people try to intimidate me. I lead a strong and free union that is free to decide its own program through you. Then number 2, TPAD and appraisal system in its current form. Hello? I'm only clearing. TPAD and appraisal system in its current form is very disturbing, it is dehumanizing, and is affecting teaching in this country. Number 3, the localization of teachers is not anything in teaching. And I'm sorry to report that one teacher has died today who was delocalized from Marakwet to Baringo and has died of malaria, and we are sure it is malaria and mosquitoes from a new environment. There are many other issues. We are not going to accept policies that are not negotiated and agreed. And so delocalization must stop forthwith. Is against ILO norms. ILO norms of staffing is very clear, and UNESCO, that teachers are posted to localities where they are linguistically connected, culturally connected, emotionally connected, and where. And this is where I urge Kepsha and Kesha, keep away from labor matters. Wacha kabisa. Let us be orderly in this sector. I do not wish to speak a lot. This is what I would have spoken on Thursday. I'll hand over this report. We are going to sit as a National Executive Council and come up with a clear position, irreducible, that we shall present to the Teacher Service Commission on 21st. We have been invited for a meeting. That meeting should not be a merry-go-round meeting. It should be a productive meeting that should give peace and assurance to the teachers of this country. And so we must agree with TSC.
Direct messages there going to the TSC from the NUT Secretary General Wilson Sossion. And yes, there were other allegations of corruption that Sossion was directing at TSC. And you've heard the shouts there when he was talking about the delocalization concern. He's very much against that. The TSC has been aiding. And unfortunately, as he says, one teacher has lost their lives who was just recently relocated to another area that is Baringo from Marakwet. Condolences to the family there. We'll get the details to the conference that's going on there in Mombasa and hopefully cross over if and when the president gives his address. Now, to a response to what Arnold, you said earlier about the friendship of the president and losing his friends in the fight against impunity, Gennaro Wachira, in his view, says once you have something to offer, you get so many friends. Some even go further to claim that they are your relatives. Once that is not there, they vanish. Real friends always remain no matter what, and they are always few. Sometimes they are not there. Perhaps in defense to what the president was saying, that many people would like to elude themselves as friends. He basically says, or even if he had them as friends before, he wants to disassociate himself. Perhaps this is a new awakening for the president and the leadership.
Well, fair enough. Wachira gets it right. There's always a turning point, and I think the president is at that particular time.
Right.
He's now going to get proper friends, people who gave him votes. They've always been his friends, and probably he hasn't trusted them as much. People who voted for him and they do their work well, wake up in the morning and just do it right to make a living, just struggle out there, and they do not encroach on law. So he's now getting, I was only like alluding to where he's come from. He actually has just come from Egypt, and we welcome him to Canaan.
Has some connotations there. But a concern that we raised during one of the breaks there is that as much as we want impunity to be fought and corrupt individuals to be brought to book and convictions to be made and handed down, there is as well a systematic way of approaching this, and we can borrow from what democracies that you have even been part of while they were fighting corruption. There is that concern of these corrupt individuals, the big friends that the president might say, those who have a lot of money and are now, defriending him or unfriending him, that they've controlled a huge part of the economy. And, we have to be systematic about how we go about bringing them to book. Can you just, expound on that?
I was basically saying that corruption is a very complicated issue in our country, just because a lot of corrupt individuals are politicians, and when they have access to power, then they have access to business and a functioning of an economy. And so as soon as we talk about taking care of corruption abruptly, what are we talking about? Our economy. When you have certain individuals actually owning commodities that we use, basic needs of every single day, what does that mean? What kind of transition is that going to look like? And that's where technocrats come in, because corruption is not something that's only dealt with in Africa. We can see corruption in the United States also. It's lobbying. They've just completely changed the term. But where it becomes dangerous is when we focus on corruption and we don't care about life. When we talk about using means to make sure we save money and build money, but then we don't care of the harm that we're putting on people, that's a worrying corruption. And when we talk about the United States, we have the Koch brothers. They own multiple oil industries in the US, and they control the way government functions. They control PAC. They control policies that go through because of the amount of money they're able to channel through lobbying. But that's something that we will have a challenge with. And those are the things that, as much as we talk about getting rid of corruption and understanding it, this is where you need technocrats, policymakers, politicians to sit down and figure out how we're able to transition to where we are doing the best for the people and not necessarily getting rid of it all, because it's difficult. Corruption also exists in Switzerland.
In one hand, we're asking for convictions, in the other, we're saying, watch out now because you might affect the economy. So what are we calling for?
We actually are not saying that the president should watch out because the economy will be affected. We know automatically corruption is an economy on its own, and it has got a life of its own. It's been there running throughout, even during the colonial system. What we're only saying is that we want a clear strategy so that the president does not show up and treat this particular time like a festival of fighting corruption, an anti-corruption festival, so that after that, like after the music festival, people go home and they forget. It should be systemic. And even as she speaks about the Koch brothers, we know too well that in this country we also have got a state capture that we talk about old money. Are people who literally, you call it the home guard capital. They captured a lot of capital then just at independence, and they are controlling the economy. Most of it survives on corruption. If we do away with it, there's a way the economy gets shaken. So what we do not see is a clear thought out strategy on how to fight this corruption. So we do not want to end up with a performance like I said. Moi had a performance around fighting corruption. Kibaki too had a performance of his own. As a country, we are tired of having performance and anti-corruption festivals. We need it dealt with once and for all. That the president has not come out clear. And we point out that because you see the organs that are expected in this chain are not all, and you see, we say that an army is as strong as its weakest member. So in fighting corruption, there is EACC, of course there's DCI, there's the NIS, there's the public service, then there's the judiciary, and above all, there is parliament, the elephant in the room. Corruption actually goes to die. Well, there has been a saying that corruption cases go to EACC to die. As in, once they get to EACC, they never leave again. That is where they die. Yes. But parliament actually is the John the Baptist of corruption.
In your view, it's the weakest link?
For me, that is where they go to wash these people. They baptize them. They make them clean.
Right.
So they are now actually receiving sadaka ndogondogo, like 10,000.
That we are now hearing of.
They are soon going to actually even have a kanyari like weka kwa hii number. As in, that's where we are headed with these guys.
Yes. Yeah. Let's just talk about the experience that you had, just to bring it to people's understanding of what we're talking about, the control of the economy, the experience that you had in India, that period.
Yes, so I was in India in October of 2015, and at the time, due to black money in the market, Prime Minister Modi decided at midnight on a Tuesday that 1,000 rand, or it was illegal. So we woke up the next morning and we found out that most of the money that we had was actually illegal, and it was a way for people to turn in the notes that they had so that the economy can almost start over afresh. They had jump-started it with a new 2,000 rupee note, and it was quite difficult because of the way it was announced. He didn't want people to have time to go and change and money laundering and exchange their money. So he wanted people to be surprised about it. And most people keep their money not even in banks. Most people keep their money in their homes, especially money that they're using for illegal purposes, such as corruption. So the next day, the lines everywhere were just extremely long. In fact, that week, no one was at work. People were at ATMs because you couldn't buy anything with the money that you had, because all of a sudden it was worthless. And it was very difficult for us to even have money. We were there with my brother and my mother, and we had to actually ask individuals to help us out of kind and then to help us on credit before they became an announcement where foreigners had access to reach certain ATMs and receive funding. And it's not something that's easy. People complained about it during that process. It was something that was difficult. People were not, I'm talking about doctors not going to work. So people were in hospital camping. It was very grueling. But at the end of it, when people began to understand why he had done it, there were a few people who applauded.
Yeah.
But
3 years on, wasn't it beneficial? Wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
3 years on.
So there's the issue of disruption, and perhaps what we're seeing playing out in the different issues, demolitions and what have you. There's the issue of disruption, perhaps that is unavoidable, and it is inevitable in the fight against graft. But then with time, you will see why it was necessary. And we'll get to that concluding remark in a bit. I'm told by my producer that the CS for Education is giving her remarks at the Coastal Conference for Primary School Heads. Let's listen in.
Officials from NEC, the Secretary General of NAT, Honorable Sosion, and his colleagues who are here with him, heads of primary schools, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here with you and to address you during this 14th Kenya Primary School Heads Association Annual Delegates Conference. And for me personally, to just thank you for the amazing work that you do on our behalf, on behalf of all of us in this country. I'd like to convey greetings and best wishes for your conference from His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, who I spoke to this morning, and who unfortunately who cannot be able to be here with us. But I know that he's watching what's happening here, and I know that he'll be listening to what we are saying here. This year's theme, Education and Skills Agenda, Accelerating Progress Towards Vision 2030. I hope you can hear me clearly. You can? Great, great. Provides an opportunity for us to reflect on progress that has been made in aligning primary education to the expectations of Kenya's national development blueprint. And our very young daughter, Aula, who came here to read a poem, reminded us of the importance of that development blueprint. Ladies and gentlemen, the net enrollment rate currently stands at 95% for primary education, while the gross enrollment rate stands at 108%. This shows that we are actually very, very close to achieving universal primary education. And I want to thank you very much, because I know that without you it would definitely not have happened. So in order to match enrollment quality, major education policies, including legal and regulatory reforms, have been.
As the Education CS giving her remarks, and it is clear that the President won't be making it there, as she's just remarked earlier, but we'll get the highlights to this 14th conference that is going on at the coast. Quite some issues that have been brought up earlier by the NUT Secretary General on delocalization and what faces the teachers in the country. We were talking about earlier the disruptive aspect of fighting graft. Excuse me, and that is necessary.
Yes. Talking about disruption, and like we have said repeatedly, that we really are in support of the fight against corruption. What we do not want is having a repeat of what has happened in the past. Yes. I'll give you an example. You remember there was a scandal about iPhones at the DP's office. Have you realized that we've just had the similar thing? So at that particular time, how was it addressed so that it doesn't repeat itself? So we want a clear plan. We want to be assured that there is a strategy, that this time round is not business as usual. That's what we're asking. So disruption is there, and it can actually be done in very many ways. Yeah. Nedima says that when fighting corruption, we honestly have to realize that we are going to be in for a long haul, so that we organize well, fight properly, so that people do not have necessarily to suffer. Because again, once they've brought down houses on the south of Tomboya, then they'll actually be facing north and east. So how many other people are going to suffer? There's going to be also the human cost, the human cost element that needs to be factored in. And we are just saying, can we have a clear picture of where we're going? Because we already see gaps. We already have mentioned those gaps. We just want the President to be serious about it.
I'm getting emotional here, and that's probably why I'm getting choked up.
Excuse me for that.
Just mate lienda kwingine. But in terms of the demolitions then, using that as an example, where do you want this particular issue to end? Because many buildings that have been up over the years are now coming down, and the President is clear that we won't spare anybody, regardless which development you're part of. In your view, where does this end in terms of success?
In my view, it would be holding people accountable to those particular buildings going down, in understanding who permitted and approved for them to go up, and them being charged. And then secondly, it would be the systemic changes within for permits to be able to be approved. I would be concerned about the current buildings going up, because there are plenty that we see that shouldn't be even going up to the level that they are, but they are going up. Right. So having a change and proper urban planning, because even in our city, I know, for instance, where my parents live, I think there are malls coming up around them. Is that legal? And so those are the questions that I have now as a citizen, and feeling secure that there's actually an institution that is concerned about my housing and my living and my well-being, and then having officers on the ground who are not particularly bribed or swayed by it.
We've spoken of the strategic approach to fighting graft. There was a concern that was raised by the Kiambu governor, Ferdinand Waititu, on what he feels should be a strategy or a different approach in demolishing the constructions within Nairobi. Let's listen in.
Kama mtu ambaye amekuwa na historia ya Nairobi. Mimi Nairobi pale nimelelewa pale na nimekuwa deputy governor wa Nairobi. Mambo ingine mimi naona pale kama hiyo watu wana support ya ubomoaji, mimi hapana support. Mambo iangaliwe, kama kuna nyumba yako inakaribiana na mto, wewe uambiwe ni gharama yako kuhakikisha hiyo mtu imesonga kidogo. Lakini kubomoa nyumba is not a solution. Honestly speaking, it's such a big loss. Na tena mjue Nairobi beleni ilikuwa ni mashamba. Nairobi beleni kulikuwa na mashamba freehold. Na ndio umeona juzi ule mzee ameshikwa na drama kubwa sana, ule Mburu amewachiliwa kwa sababu title deed yake ni genuine. Hiyo shamba ilikuwa yake 96 acres. Watu walipiga bwembwe ati corruption sasa hii hawezi shikwa kwa sababu watu wameona makaratasi ile genuine. Mimi nataka niwaambie kama zaidi pia mnapigana na corruption, wale wako wanafanya hiyo kazi, kidogo muende pole pole, mchunguze maneno sawa sawa. Hapana kimbia ati ni corruption, ati ni kubomoa manyumba ati mnabomoa manyumba, kwa sababu saa ingine kama ilikuwa shamba ambayo imepita mto, hakukuwa na riparian, ilikuwa title deed ni ya mtu mmoja. Yule mtu alinunua hiyo plot hakupimiwa ati mpaka hapa ndio kwako. Na sasa maneno ya riparian ya 30 meters imekuja wakati wa Mishuki akiwa minister wa environment. Kwa hivyo maneno ya kubomoa nyumba za watu is so painful. Watu wameinvest a lot, Mr. Deputy President. Na mimi nataka kukwambia kwa sababu wewe ni hustler ambaye umewekelea mawe kwa ingine na ingine mpaka ukafika pale umefika. Maneno ya ubomoaji iende pole pole. Maneno ya corruption ifanywe due diligence kwanza. Kwa sababu mtu asistakiwe kwa bure, aharibiwe jina yake bure, na iwe hakuna maneno imeangaliwa sawa sawa.
I'm sure you've seen this clip, whether via WhatsApp or on your social media platform, whichever is your favorite. And it's easy to laugh it off, the concerns that he raises and his views. But some would say, actually, there needs to be a systemic system in demolishing the buildings, demolishing structures, even in Kibra, where they are on a road reserve. And perhaps part of the system, he hasn't mentioned it, is relocation of populations and, if to some extent, compensation, because a lot of money has gone into this. I'll start with you, Nerima.
Well, the part that I do not agree with is changing the flow of a river. It's a natural resource, and it always seems like bullying. First of all, the river was there before us. Yes. So here you come with yourself and you say, you are going to move because I am here now. And that's not how we should treat our environment. At the end of the day, it will be here after us. And we need to be concerned about the resources, the natural resources we leave for our children. I would say that I do believe that, yes, there should be a system. And Arnold also mentioned earlier about how Raila did the same thing when he was in government. There are still places I passed that have that red X. And so it means that it didn't finish. It didn't quite finish, but he had begun with demolitions. And there should be a proper way of doing it. And it goes back to urban planning. And that's what I was talking about, yes, where we do have, you know, institutions that are to take care of the planning in our population. We know that by 2022, we're here talking about the politics of it, but do we understand that we'll be 52 million Kenyans? Do we understand that the average age will be 19? Do we understand that as much as the big four, one of them is affordable housing, yes, but if the average age can't afford housing because of unemployment, what does that look like? I mean, there are ways to properly plan. There are ways to properly plan cities and also to accommodate those who are affected. Because it's not just Kibra when we talk about people settling on road reserves. We should also talk about those in Mau, for instance, evicting people without really finding ways to settle them properly. And that's the kind of planning that our government tends to lack. It's almost reactive rather than proactive when it comes to focusing on citizens.
All right, and in your view, the issue of demolitions, it's not just about bringing the buildings down. And in fact, some argue the demolitions aren't even complete because they're hazardous as have been left right now.
Well, first of all, you must actually thank democracy. It's a very beautiful thing that the same process that gave us Kivuta Kibwana as a governor for Makueni is the process, same process that gave Kiambu, the governor that is Waititu. You see, I know when it comes to property and life, people are very passionate. So Waititu might probably have gotten ahead of himself, but knowing that he is quite a very thinking politician, he meant it, that rivers should move. And Wangari Maathai said that nature is very unforgiving. We've seen that one time too many. When it starts to rain, and water always finds its way. It knows where the ancestors went by. So it will always come. So again, it goes back to, is it being done strategically? Do we have where we are starting, the goals for which we want to achieve, and where we are headed? How do we then, again, like I said, ensure that it does not occur? We have done demolitions before. These are new buildings that have come up after a major demolition exercise that went through. Yeah. We have these rules in place. So the systemic gaps that exist must first. That's why I still insist that until we see convictions, until we see the end to this,
yes,
this is so much of style and very little substance. The substance must actually be seen in the end of it. We must see it at that particular place. Because we see the demolitions going around. Now we've done Nairobi, probably we'll be going to Kiambu, and that is why Waititu is getting apprehensive. Or he probably knew they'll be going east after they've left west and Nairobi south, and now they'll be moving this other side. But I think still we do not seal those loopholes that ensure recurrence. Like I've just told you, at Harambee House Annex, we had a scandal with iPhones, people being jewed into it. Yesterday we had laptops in the same office. So there is a problem at Harambee House Annex. Same style, same way. So how was it addressed?
Yes.
We brought down buildings. We are still bringing down buildings that are new. And people are still bringing up buildings. What aren't we doing right? Okay. That's why we are saying, can we do it differently? Yeah.
And I'm sorry you didn't bring this up, but it came to mind when you were talking about the disruptiveness of the economy, when the corrupt individuals who really run sections of the economy through businesses that they've invested in brought to book and brought down. But there's the issue that even Raila Odinga spoke about asset recovery and how we should go about this in terms of stabilizing the economy.
I think a friend of ours actually just shared a report with us, and she actually highlighted that there's been a research that was just done by Tax Justice Network, where Kenya has been ranked as one of the highest countries when it comes to illicit resources and revenues, where tax evasion, money laundering, and things like that. And I think that should be a concern for us, because as much as we talk about the corruption that exists, actually Kenya was ranked at 80% when it comes to money laundering and tax evasion. Then when we talk about assets and things that belong, how are we going to be able to create systems to where we find the people who are, one, accountable, and then two, what kind of strict regulations if we would want to put there when it comes to being able to standardize or monitor financial flows, because at the end of the day it does affect a country. And these are the things that we're talking about, where Maliba mentioned, where corruption in itself can be part of an economy in itself. And those are the concerns in how, when we talk about tackling corruption in our country, that we should be putting into consideration.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the aspect of asset recovery in this fight against graft and stabilizing as we conclude?
One, I insert that I do not think that even the assets we are recovering are safe in the hands of the guys we think should be recovering them. History has taught us that sometimes it's just the same guy with different faces, so it just goes around. But talking about the economic element, there are people who put their businesses, money of hard work, into a building. You put up a business, and then because it's built on a wrong place, it goes down. Because you want to assume that a building of this magnitude coming up must have gone through all the approval levels and it's standard. So again, people are going to lose houses, people are going to lose property. We are not talking about the real owners, people who knew too well that they would play with rules and come up with investments to get money from other Kenyans, because those buildings are not just there for, or rather, the construction as put out there is not a decoration.
Yes.
It attracts revenue. So people come in, how does it attract revenue? I'm working somewhere, I get a little bit of money, put in a stall, so you can put it down, there is a bank on my neck, same way. So at any particular time we want to do these things, we want to insist that it has to be strategic. We have got a constitution. The president is not a man like some of us who would have to struggle to get expertise and to have knowledge. The president has got the best knowledge in this country, has got the best brains. He has got NIS at his disposal. He has got the best economists. So the human element costs in all this. The disruption of the economy, even as we get around there, because again, real estate has been quite good in washing illicit money coming in from terrorism, from drugs. That's where people are going to park their money. So how it affects, we will still insist we need a clear plan. We need the end of it. We just I don't want to see a festival again, a festival of bringing down houses, so it becomes ritualistic.
Or razzmatazz, as you put it earlier. Nerima, final remarks in a few seconds before I hand it over to the entertainment section.
Sure, final remarks. I am hopeful. There are youth who want to see the change, especially when we talk about decreasing corruption and the initiatives such as Why Follow, where young people are calling for not just convictions of high-profile cases, but also making sure that systems that lead youth-led government initiatives are properly managed. So it's very hopeful, and I believe that through that, the president cannot do this on his own. Like I said, corruption has to be something that we all want, and we need it, especially young people.
All right, and as he says, underlined it in most of his remarks that it needs to be systematic and not just haphazard. But thank you very much for your time. We have to end it at this point, but I'm sure you're keen, you're still following. We'll still see you on our air soon as you give your comments and observations on the fight against graft. It seems to be a campaign that will go on, and you say it needs to, if anything, if it will be a legacy, it needs to go on for the rest of the 4 years.
It has to be sustainable.
Yes.
We need a sustainability plan around fighting corruption.
All right.
Because it's deep-rooted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arnold Maliba, Policy Analyst, as well as the Strategic Partnership Policy Dialogues Manager at Emerging Leaders Foundation, and Nerima Wako, Executive Director at Siasa Place. Happy birthday once more. Thank you for giving us 2 hours of your birthday, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'll hand it now over to Usha Jose, who is back on NTV Today with the entertainment segment. We've missed you. It's been a while.
Now moving further and field, but still on online, was Sam Smith. Now every time we hear about him, it's always a good thing. It's about this amazing music that he has come up with, but not this time. Now he did find himself in a spot of trouble after a video. Adam Lambert and him were hanging out on a cruise ship, and then Adam Lambert was doing an Instagram live, and Sam Smith was heard in the background saying that he doesn't like Michael Jackson. Now the internet has gone crazy wild. We have Michael Jackson's ex who gave him a few words of her own. We also have Michael Jackson's nephew TJ who said it was wrong. And well, people have pretty much gone crazy. You have to go online to check this out. But for now, have a look at the video. Tell me what you think.
I don't like Michael Jackson, but this is a good start. Oh. I don't like Michael Jackson, but this is a good start. Oh.
Well, guys, I've gone ham. I would not like to be Sam Smith right now. He actually hasn't commented since then. Not sure that's a wise move because he just looks like he's not remorseful. I mean, if you do believe that he should be, that's well, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Now, moving on, but still on the music industry, Ciara has released a new song. It's called Freak Me, and it was shot in, wait for it, Soweto. Yes, you heard me right. So you can be sure the video, of course, has amazing dance moves. Of course, the Goya Goya was going to be featuring in there. And also, she did feature Techno Miles in this specific video, so in this song. So obviously, it was going to be amazing. But you don't have to take my word for it. Just take a look.
Why slow on it, take control of it, take all of it, yeah, all of it. Said you want it, now you want it. I know what you like, I know what you like. Go down, baby, stay down, baby, in and out with it, right now, baby. I make you smile, baby, make me proud, baby. I know what you like, I know what you like. I love how you take care of me, that good, good, always there for me. All I want, you got all I need, loving on your body, yeah. I'll be the free, be the free.
Fans, after seeing this, went commented on how much the video sort of reminded them of Tiwa Savage. Well, Ciara did actually go online to say that she was inspired by Tiwa Savage, and that is all the proof you need that Africa is, well, the hotbed of good music and good beats and everything to do with rhythm. Now, further afield and to probably what is the most exciting story for me today, it's an amazing movie, Johnny English. I mean, we loved the first one, we loved the second one, and I have good news for you. We have Johnny English, the third movie of Johnny English is going to be coming out in October, and it just looks like it's going to be as amazing, as funny, as hilarious as the first two. Take a look at the trailer. Nobody can be liked by everybody, but I literally have never met a person who did not like Johnny English, Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, whatever you want to call him. Well, that's it for the entertainment segment. Back to you, Mark. Right before I hand it over to you, apparently shade has been thrown because I said I missed the space. So fine, I missed the space and I missed you, Mark Masai, and I missed co-hosting with you and your little quips.
Oh,
back to you.
Thank you very much. And in the words of Johnny English, you're looking particularly beautiful this afternoon. Thank you, Isha. We need to get to the news in a moment. That's in actually under 5 minutes. Catch me on the other side of the studio for that. Good afternoon. Welcome to our 1 o'clock news update. My name is Mark Masai, and we have the reactions from Parliament on the latest allegations of bribery on members of Parliament who were shooting down, or actually shot down, the sugar report last week. And not too long ago, Kennedy Morethi was speaking to Kenny Member of Parliament Kanini Kega, who also is the head of that particular parliamentary committee that worked on the sugar report, and he laid blame on the majority leader as well as the minority leader John Mbadi on how things played out in Parliament last week, bringing down the sugar report. And he now has a direct response to one of those who've been accused. Over to you, Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Mark Masai. There in studio is that first, the moment these claims were made, we got in touch with the majority leader, that is Aidan Duale, and he said that he was ready for this motion that Kanini Kega has expressly said that he will be introducing in the House through the approval of the Speaker. But then again, Kanini Kega also mentioned the minority leader, that is John Mbadi, with whom he says, together with the majority leader, they conspired to make sure that this report did not get the threshold that it is needed so that it could pass in Parliament. He actually said that they had put in so much work with regards to that report, in as far as going beyond the committee's mandate. But let us hear from the minority leader, John Mbadi, who now joins us, just to hear his view on this. Kanini Kega says that he is going to introduce a motion to discuss you and the majority leader. Please come close. And what are your views on this?
Yeah, let him bring it on. We will be ready to meet him if he brings that motion. First of all, I don't know what he wants to discuss about us, as far as I'm concerned. And it is also not accurate to say that we are the ones who made the report be defeated, because I made my contribution as Member of Parliament for Super South. As a minority leader, I did not whip even our members to a particular direction, because I wanted members to exercise their independence of thought and to act according to their conscience. So I don't see why someone would castigate me, blame me for doing my work, which is basically to speak in Parliament and speak to the report. I think Kanini Kega should be honest with himself and honest with Kenyans. He should not pass his failure onto others. Kanini Kega should admit that he did not steer this joint committee the right way. Why do I say that? Remember when he first brought the interim report after 10 days, that interim report was condemned in equal measure, including the leadership of the House and the Speaker himself, who rubbished the report. In fact, nobody defended that report. He took back the report and promised us to do a good job. He went back and produced a report together with his team. The first people to make noise about the report that was tabled in Parliament was who? Was members of that committee. Remember Simbarati, remember Dan Manzo. They said that that is not the report that they considered, that report was doctored. So where did it change to become a good report? If the report immediately was tabled, a section of its members had disowned the report. But further, I think the public is not aware that Kanini Kega himself, the chairman of that joint committee, attempted to do something that has not been done in the history of this Parliament, to amend that report. He actually brought proposed amendment to the Speaker for approval, which the Speaker brought to the House Business Committee. And we asked him, how can a chairman of a committee amend his own report even before it is debated? And it is unprocedural. That is when we advised that someone else should move it. So if he could
What was this amendment that he wanted to introduce to this report? Because I remember there were actually claims that the report had been doctored, whereby the CSs it was recommended that CSs take direct responsibility. But then again, the report as it came to the House, it had the proposal whereby investigative agencies should come in and investigate. Is this the same amendment that he was proposing?
Exactly. I remember the Speaker giving us updates on this report and telling us that the Kanini Kega had proposed amendments, among which included that now the Cabinet Secretaries should take responsibility. whichever the content of the report, you know, the point, the amendment, the proposed amendment, the bottom line is, if the chairman has confidence in his report, the chairman can never propose amendments. And by proposing amendment, Kennedy Kega had told the whole country that he also does not believe that he did a good job on the report, because they had over a month.
Were you compromised as he tries to put it out?
I think even him, he knows that I'm not compromised. Because really, yes, last week I heard them say that it was probably Rotich who reached out to me. This week I'm hearing him say that Duale talked to me to protect Duale's company. I never knew that Duale is in the sugar business, and I don't even know the companies that Duale own. But you see, Kennedy Keg approached me on the corridors of Parliament and persuaded me, because he had heard that I'm not comfortable with that report. And he was trying to persuade me that just pass it. I mean, I cannot just pass a report. And I told him very clearly, Kennedy, if you want this report to pass, withdraw it, go and improve on it, and bring it back. Because we gave you a specific task. This is a special report, Muridi. And I think that is where people are losing sight.
Thank you.
A special report must address a special and specific issue. We had asked Kanini Kega's committee to go and investigate whether sugar we have in the country has mercury or not, is healthy for human consumption or not. Coming back to us, he should have answered that question and even gone ahead to name those entities which brought the sugar that is bad, and the action to be taken. And the KEBS, look, that is my last word. KEBS is the institution that has the responsibility to ensure quality of products in this country. Look at that Kanini Kega's report. Let me call it his report. Where have they even indicted KEBS? Nothing. They are just going to cabinet secretary, a person who is only responsible for policy. And the body which is independent, which has the mandate, the responsibility, the powers, the resources to carry out market surveillance is let go scot-free. And you know the reason why? They were protecting KEBS, because if you bring KEBS in, you open Pandora's box. They will say who are the importers who brought bad sugar in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've heard it from John Mbadi, who has also said that there is an important component that was left out, and that is KEBS. And this matter, he says, if it was brought out, probably would have really known who are the real sugar barons in this country. It is a matter that we are following up, and probably it might come up in Parliament from 2:30 when the House is going to convene. This is a story that we'll be keeping tabs on, and we'll be giving you information later on in the evening in our subsequent bulletins. Right now, it is back to you, Mark, in studio.
Kennedy Muradi in Parliament, thank you very much. With what you've managed to get us, that is the reactions this afternoon and earlier in the day. This is definitely setting up a heated conversation in Parliament this afternoon, and we'll be getting that update from you as you'll be following this story. And this is what Kanini Kega had said earlier, speaking to Kennedy Muradi, when he said he's going to draft a motion to discuss the conduct of the majority leader of Parliament and the minority leader of Parliament, who gave his response just a few seconds ago.
We delivered a baby who was alive, a baby who was breathing. I gave it to the members of Parliament who were on the floor of the House. But when I came back, the baby was dead. So who killed the baby? It is not me. It is the members of Parliament who killed the baby. And it is very, very, very unfortunate. Because once a report is rejected, that is the end of the story. But I know the other arms of government are looking upon us to even look at the document, because it doesn't have to be passed by Parliament. A fact is a fact. If there is any person who made a mistake, the other relevant agencies, the DCI, EACC, Kenya Revenue Authority, they are seized of this document, and I know for sure they are going to act.
Meanwhile, NUT Secretary General Wilson Sossion has called for solidarity amongst teachers. Speaking in Mombasa during the Kenya Primary School Teachers Conference, Sossion urged the government to address delocalization of teachers, teachers' performance appraisal development and unfair promotion of teachers.
TSC, ministry, all the centers, unions and heads associations, that we speak in one language and we consult, so that whatever is being implemented in this country, whether by policy or legislation, is agreed across and supported by all of us. Do you agree with me with that?
The Central Organization of Trade Unions Secretary General Francis Atwoli has lauded the government for its ongoing war against corruption, adding that it should be extended to more parastatals and government agencies. Atwoli claims that he has evidence the money was looted at the National Social Security Fund and urged Director of Public Prosecutions to carry out investigations. The Secretary General also commended the ongoing demolition of buildings constructed on riparian land, saying it would help restore the capital city.
You cannot go and build on a public utility and then you expect, as I've said, 2014, I said the wheels of justice grind slow, but it doesn't matter how long it takes. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow. Even those people who are supporting impunity, in the highest position in the government, one day the wheels of justice will roll over them.
Traders along Lagos Road near Marble Arch Hotel in Nairobi's Central Business District have accused county officers of harassment and extortion. This morning, the Askaris raided their business premises. The traders were forced to lock themselves in their shops. The officers used tear gas to force their way in, injuring the traders, customers, and destroying property. Some of the traders fainted after being overwhelmed by tear gas. Traders say they are forced to give some money to the city Askaris so as to continue with their business. Police in Cabernet have nabbed 5,000 litres of illicit brew in a morning operation. The police also destroyed the illegal dens. Police conducted the raid after a tip-off from residents who say the readily available brew, is among the leading causes of school dropouts. The residents also accused the police of abetting the vice. Led by Deputy County Commissioner Ruben Ratemo, the police officers pledged to increase patrols. Kituro, Kaprogonya and Bondeni are most affected by the illicit brew trade.
Preparing the Shanga is downstream, and you can imagine there are no roads, there's nothing, it's through the bushes. It's very conducive for them when they are doing this. Not unless we keep monitoring throughout, and this is what is going to happen. We are going to be making snapshots now and then,
and we are getting certain information. Some security officers from this region, but they are not working in Baringo County, different regions. They are connected. We are doing our investigations. Once tukimaliza tutawanaza na chukua tachukuliwa.
Most senior citizens in Kajiado County say they've not been receiving money from the national government despite attaining the required age. People above 70 years are supposed to receive 2,000 shillings monthly. In Purko Ward, Kajiado Central, most of the beneficiaries say the money is barely enough to cater for basic needs. Females are disadvantaged due to cultural practices. Local leaders are now urging the government to review the increment of the funds to the senior citizens. More than 500 families in Pokot Central and part of Pokot South have been left homeless after more than 250 houses were torched as they were being evicted from Leland Forest on Sunday. The Kenya Forest Service Guard spearheaded the evictions from Paro, Nakogen, Solion, Kapushen, Rawal and Kamulgon villages.
A move that has left many families out in the cold. Residents allegedly moved to the land following the high cases of insecurity.
Nataka niwahakikishie wananchi ya kwamba ile kazi ya kutoa wakora, those criminals katika ndani ya Leland Forest tutaendelea naye mpaka tuhakikisha kwamba hii area imekuwa safi, imekuwa shwari.
The residents say that they were not given any eviction notice. They are now asking the government to step in and assist them with relief food.
So I'll ask officers to enhance by making sure wawe na informers kila kona wajue wesi ni wakora ni nani. Alafu pia we also sit in these committees. Jambo ikipatikana, ikionekana takafanywa pia sisi tujue so that tusikuwe na catastrophe ya raia wenye wanalala nje sasa kwa sababu manyumba yao yamechomwa na ingewezekana kuwasongesha kama tungeongea.
The governor called on the national government to deploy more officers to beef up security in the area. Helen Aura, NTV.
Kaloleni Member of Parliament Paul Katana has warned the Director of Survey against allocating community land to individuals. Speaking at Tsangatsini, a trading center in Kayafungo Ward during a public meeting, Katana accused the Director of Survey of engaging with cartels that have intentions to grab public land. The MP's sentiments come after a non-local came out demanding ownership of more than 2,000 acres of land in Kayafungo Ward. The legislators asked the government to ensure that all land issues in Kilifi are addressed to stop politicians using land matters as bait.
Hii ardhi ni ya watu wa Tsangatsini na lazima wapimiwe watu wa Tsangatsini. Hii mambo ya kuketi ofisini, mwanzo Director of Survey, wacha kupima ardhi za watu ukiketi Nairobi. Uhusishe county government ya Kilifi na viongozi wa Kilifi. Ndo mashamba ya pimwe tujue ni kina nani wanapimiwa. Siku kete ofisini Nairobi munapima ramahani, munazileta huku munaiba mashamba watu. Hiyo kitu ikome.
Mira and Mogoka farmers in Kirinyaga and Embu counties have complained over the proposal by some MCAs and a lobby group to outlaw the mild stimulant in parts of the coast region. The farmers who grow Mogoka said such a ban would deal a heavy blow in regions where the crop is the main economic driver. The farmers who congregated at Piai Market on the border of the two counties linked the proposed ban to trade wars. According to the farmers, Mira, worth millions of shillings, is sold to Mombasa County every day. The farmers say the trade has turned improved livelihoods in Mbere and Murinduko, beg your pardon. Their cries comes at a time when a Mombasa-nominated MCA, Fatma Swale, is set to table a bill seeking to bar matatu, tuk-tuk, touts and boda-boda operators from chewing Mira while on duty. If passed into law, those who violate this could be jailed.
Mbere, jamii wa Kirinyaga, jamii wa Meru na wa Embu tumekura miaka mingi sana. Na aina hiyo effect wanasema. Kwa hivyo ningesema maybe kama kuna upelelezi walifanya, waangalia watu walikuwa wamekula Mogoka wakiwa wamechanganya na nini.
Ile siasa inaenea Mombasa ni siasa nduni ambayo inaweza angusha hata wakulima huku Kirinyaga and Mount Kenya region.
Tuwezi kulima mmea ambao unaweza kudhuru mtu. Hatuwezi. Kwa hivyo hizo ni propaganda. Hiyo ni siasa, na jameni wa Kenya wenzetu tuachane na kuleta mambo ya siasa kwenye economic activities. Tutakuja kuumizana bure.
Former Watamu MCA Ibrahim Abdi Athman, popularly known as Ibrahim Matumbo, was arraigned in Malindi to answer to several fraud charges. The politician is said to have engaged in suspicious deals exceeding 25 million shillings.
The court heard that on 16th of October 2015 at Blue Marlin Resort along Lamu Road in Malindi Town, former Watamu MCA Ibrahim Abdi Athman conspired to defraud Moorgate Investments Limited in a deal worth 25 million shillings. The politician is also accused of forging a sublease transfer of 4 apartments and a bank premises. He is also said to have submitted a false document at Mombasa Land's office for sublease of the apartments to the land registrar, and in December 2015, he obtained registration of plot number 603 Malindi by false pretense. Athman denied all the charges before Malindi Chief Magistrate Julie Oseko, including theft allegations of 5 million shillings from Diamond Trust Bank Kenya Limited, Malindi branch. He was released on a cash bail of 500,000 shillings with an alternative bond term of 800,000 shillings with a surety of the same amount. The case will be heard on the 22nd of November 2018. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
A woman and her young child are nursing serious burns following a domestic row in which the husband poured boiling water on her before setting their house on fire in Kanjuku village, Gatundu North, Kiambu County. The incident is the latest in the skyrocketing cases of domestic violence in the country.
The evidence of cruelty of a man towards his family.
Amshwa na bibi kaniambia kuna mambo inaendelea hapa ya kwa boma hii. Basi kuamka nikakuta ni moshi mwingi sana. Basi tukaanza kuzima, tukaendelea watu wakaja wengi.
38-year-old Samuel Nguta is said to have committed this heinous act following a prolonged domestic quarrel with his wife Anne Njeri.
Kama wiki mbili iliyopita amechoma bibi yake hapa tu. Alikuwa anatembea akisema atachoma yeye, yani kumaanisha atamuua. Kwa hivyo ningeuliza serikali chukue hatua kali sana.
Neighbors claim that Nguta purchased petrol which he doused in and outside the house before setting it on fire. Jerry and her child were luckily rescued by the neighbors who took them to a Gagania Level 4 hospital in Gatundu North. The neighbors warn that if the man who is still at large is not arrested, they will take the law into their own hands. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Briefly on the continent before we get to the sports, Zimbabwe President Emmerson Mnangagwa has called for the country to move on.
Under-17 football team, the Junior Stars has to put behind the age-cheating drama when it takes on South Sudan this afternoon in the ongoing Africa Under-17 Cup of Nations CECAFA region qualifiers. 3 players, Maxwell Mulili, Leslie Ocheno and Abdul Malik Hussein, were deemed overage after they failed MRI tests administered by CAF. Coached by Michael Omwenga and captained by Arnold Onyango, the Junior Stars have their work cut out against South Sudan, who defeated Djibouti 2-1 in their opening match. In Monday's game at the Chimanzi Stadium, Rwanda secured its second win at the tournament with a 4-3 victory over Burundi. The winner of the tournament qualifies for the 2019 Africa Under-17 Cup of Nations in Tanzania. Let's talk rugby now, and Dalmas Chitui, Felix Ayange and Curtis Lilako will bolster National 15's rugby team, the Kenya Simbas, ahead of the final Rugby Africa Gold Cup clash away to Namibia on Saturday. Chitui and Ayange have been out due to injury, while Lilako makes his return to the squad for the first time since the victory against Morocco on the 23rd of June. The 3 are the changes made by coach Ian Snook to the squad that played Tunisia on Saturday. The winner of the Namibia versus Kenya match in Windhoek will get a ticket to the Rugby World Cup in Japan in 2019, while the loser will head to the global repechage in France. The Simbas remain 28th in the World Rugby rankings despite their emphatic 67-0 victory over Tunisia. And let's play a bit of chess. And the Africa Youth Chess Championship is currently underway in Kisumu County, and Kenyan youngsters are doing pretty well. And 14-year-old Timothy Mwabu, Tracy Mboya, Dev Shah, and Jeff Gishuki, as well as Samuel Wanjala and Samjay Ramesh, are leading Kenya's chase for continental glory. Other star attractions for Kenya are under-8 girls, sisters of Janiv and Janki Shah, who are currently leading in their category. In the under-10 boys, Wanjala Samuel and Shah Vain have scooped the first and second positions so far. The under-10 girls is being led by Kenyans Patel Patrick, Shah Devsheri and Elaine Muturi. Let's cross the borders now, and USA captain Jim Furyk remains coy as to whether...
The Kiru and the sports desk for that. And being Tuesday, you know what to expect after the 9 o'clock news sidebar with Ken Mijungu. With all that's going on in Parliament, your guess is as good as mine, but here's a sneak preview.
NEMA is responsible for the buildings on riparian and waterways in the city.
Why the government is doing this?
The approval can be given, but the implementation must also comply.
I'm not seeing anywhere where Willie Bet as a person appeared before the committee.
Bet never appeared.
We set them out on a mission to go and do tests, not testing.
Report has failed. We have delivered a baby. It's a bouncing baby boy. Return to sender.
Wajatepo wakasema ukweli ya maneno ya hii sukari.
Mumetuaibisha kama bunge.
History will charge you.
Shika waizi wote Kenya.
I've lost very many friends, Bishop.
We want to encourage President Uhuru to continue.
Because I've been receiving so many calls. How can you sit there and watch all this destruction?
Tutawasaidia na political goodwill.
It's difficult to stop, not because we love to destroy, but because we must fight impunity.
This is where the real conversation happens.
That's just a sneak preview of what to expect on Sidebar. And up next on NTV Sasa with Dan Mule and Doreen Majala, we'll have the discussion on the cost of construction, and definitely the ongoing demolitions will feature in their conversation in a moment. Stay with NTV.